Have you ever tried to make your own comic book series? Well, that's what I'm doing. Follow my adventure. You're watching Making Love with Mr. E. Hey everyone, thank you for coming back to another episode of Making Love with Mr. E. I'm glad you're showing interest in my comic book series and how it got put together. Um, I know these aren't really entertaining videos, but maybe they're a little bit helpful. I would like today to talk about my experience with writing my first comic book script. Yeah. Well, now, I have a lot of experience script writing for film production, whether it be small comedy skits, whether it be full length movies, and imagining all kinds of stuff in between. Um, but I've never written for comic books before. You would think that it wouldn't be that much different. But no, it is. It's very different because a comic book is a story itself isn't that much different. Actually, writing for TV or a short comic book series is probably very similar, almost identical as far as conceptual goes. But the format for writing a comic book, now that is what is the key element that I had not learned before. So I picked up a few books on writing comics, and a lot of them were wordy. Some of them were complete BS. A few of them were useful as far as uh, getting your mind in the right place, for knowing what to communicate. But the best advice that I got came from actual illustrators, who said to me what kind of scripts they like to get. Because see, here's the key point. When you're writing the script, nobody reads the script but you know, and the illustrator, the people who are working on the book. So your script has to communicate to the other people who are working on the book with you what your intentions are. And that really is it. Obviously, it has to make sense which panel you're working on, who's saying what, all that kind of stuff has to be very clear. But when it comes down to panel description, and obviously dialogue is important because you can't just leave your dialogue off because they need to know how much space to leave for speech bubbles. You can't, you don't want it to have they're all completely filled with their face and no room for speech bubble or no room for narration or whatever's going on. So it's really important that you communicate clearly that kind of stuff. Now, there's a lot of different ways that I read to approach formatting it. I didn't like any of them. I know that sounds very stupid and cocky, but to me, the approach that I take to writing a movie script is the same approach I took to writing this comic book, and the format um, that I saw online of sample scripts and the books, what they proposed to do as a sample script, didn't seem to be as easy for me to track what the heck I was doing. Um, so I changed my format a little bit then, and kept it, really super simple, also for reference purposes. Um, and But basically the things are the same. So for instance, what I would do is what I did was I streamed all my thoughts out in a basically a note format to start, because obviously I could have gone like outline, but then when you go outline, for me it's too strict to start. I want to just kind of stream through my thought process once time through, and so I make short little just stabs at what I was thinking what'll happen in the story, and then I go back and then I turn that into an outline to make sure, like, I know this can go better over here, these things, and then I use the outline format to lay out where everything sits. Once that is done, then obviously I know what panels and what page, how many panels a page, and that kind of stuff I'm working with to communicate these ideas. And obviously, you don't want to smash too many panels in your page unless these panels can be, really small with no dialogue. And sometimes it really irritates an illustrator to have to, illustrate 9 panels in a page, which I've seen. I would have not sent 9 panels in a page to my illustrator. Um, I call the max at 7. If I go over 7, it hasn't happened yet. But I try to stay 3 to 5. 1 or 2 panels is obviously if you're wanting to feature something really specific, you want to have 1 or 2 panels a page. And it's really important that you think this kind of stuff out because you want to make sure that you're using pages and panels to pace your story. Because you got to think where the page is in the book, where it's going to flip, because that's part of the experience. You don't want to have something that you're reading on this page that's immediately spoiled on the next page. Because you could use the page flip itself to create a sense of excitement. Like this is going to a thing and they're like, oh, this is cool. And then boom, now it's, hey, now you've surprised them. Things like that are really key when you're writing your own book, that you can control the layout. If you can't control the layout, like because you're writing for somebody else and they're going to throw ads in there or throw stuff in the middle, then I hope that you are able to think of it, don't use that as your element because you can't control it. Personally, I have control over that element of my book, so I use the thought process of how these pages lay out as I tell my story and as I lay it out in my timeline, my outline. And then when I'm filling in the content, okay, so let's say I'm on page 1, panel 1, you got to think you're starting your story out, like any other story, but with a comic book, you want to think, okay, I really want to impact people with the first page, kind of like first scene in a movie or whatever. You really got to have that first boom because people are picking it up. In fact, the back of your comic book and the front of your comic book are probably, like the first couple pages in the back and the first couple pages in the front are probably the most seen before anybody buys. And believe it or not, from when I go to the stores and I've talked to people who shop for comic books in the stores, which I know that sounds like silly something to do as research, but that's what I did as research. I went and talked to people in comic books, and I watched how they flip through comic books. It's amazing how many people go from the back first. They pick it up and they start off at the back of the book. Not at the front. You'd think, I want to see how the book starts. No, they start in the back of the book. I don't know why. There's probably some like really good logic and psychology as to why that happens, but I do know that it happens. Writing, knowing these things for me was helpful, and it might be helpful for you. It may not matter. You may have your own stickler way of doing things, but so you're communicating your panels to your illustrator. Now, what I would say is do not overwrite. The key point of feedback I got from every illustrator was do not overwrite. Because it's just annoying. It's like you put all these nuances that can't be captured in a snapshot. And when I say nuances captured in a snapshot, what I mean is like you could be very writers can be very specific about their words. Like certain words mean something very specific to them, very specific imagery to them. So they're using specific words that that are fancy or wordy or what may read well in a novel. But you don't have to be a wordsmith when you're describing your panel. What you need to do is this: simple. Focus on the key points that are important to you and your story. Simple as that. Focus on the key elements that you need in your story. if he is jumping over a bar and there is elements in the bar that you need to communicate that have to be because of that's going on, just make sure that all those elements are communicated as you go through the story. Set up the stage ahead of time. Make sure that you're not uh, that you're not leaving things out, and make sure that you're not uh, overcomplicating it. Um, it. Simple is better, straightforward, and don't make the artist guess too much, but try to leave them plenty of room to be creative. Um, and if you think if you think that being simple is not enough, I find that if the page that I'm trying to communicate has some visual elements that I want to capture, I may send along a rough, ash cans, scratch image with a simple layout of the page along with the script, for the illustrator to basically reference and ignore if he could think of something better. Seriously. So what it really comes down to is making sure that communication is there for the team that's working on the book, that you're giving an illustrator enough flexibility to be artistic and creative, but at the same time making sure that you communicate everything that you need in your story. And then if you have colorists or secondary artists, like you have a different penciler from inker, all that stuff just needs to be, communicated very clearly so that people don't make mistakes, because the worst thing you can do is have to go back and pay for a second page or make people do work for free, or and that's just horrible, right? You shouldn't have to do that. So get the script right the first time, get the communication right through the script, and there should be virtually little hassle. Anyway, yeah, so that was my whole 2 cents. I'm not the most experienced comic book script writer. I haven't been in the industry. I don't know what the industry standards for comic book scripts are. I've only written movie scripts and versions of film-based production scripts. But I did study and I did learn, and I think that I have developed a method that works really good for me and my illustrator. Ideally, it doesn't matter because the only people that are reading it that are on the team. So thank you again for coming and watching, and I hope that you will come back next time when I talk about something else that is specific to creating the Captain Love comic book, which will be launching soon, and I hope that you get yourself a copy because it's going to be awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. If you don't mind, please click the like button below and subscribe if you haven't already, so you can get some more info on what's going on and keep up with the things. There's going to be some more stuff coming through on the channel. I hope that you're going to enjoy it, and please have a wonderful day, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Wasted, I've wasted.